Hey, yo, what's up? It's your man, Mr. Dalvin. And you know I got soul. Follow me right here. Catch the interviews. Don't miss it. It's all good. Peace.
Dalvin, what's a song in your catalog and Jodeci's catalog? You can go with both. What's a song in both catalogs that you look back and you're just like, yeah, that's the one.
Well, as far as mine, I'll have to say and I, which is probably like my favorite song up to date. And in Jodeci catalog, favorite song I've done, if we're talking about my own, contribution, is probably "Won't Waste You" on
Mm,
Jodeci second album. Yeah,
yeah, that won't waste
yeah.
you is a
So
great song. And I, man, I got to talk about this song because I had a chance
okay,
to listen to it. I think I first heard it like on YouTube like years back. I think that was like when you first
right, right,
posted it. And I was like, when am I
yeah,
gonna actually hear this song? Because we've done interviews for quite some time, and I never got to hear that song. You finally dropped the song,
right.
and I'll tell you this, like,
Hmm.
"Good Times" was a great song, but this record right
Thank
here
you.
feels like, and I don't wanna make any comparisons, but it feels like a Jodeci record from the big production, the big harmonies, the lush
Right.
harmonies, like, it really
Hmm.
reminds me of that. Like, just take me to that song because I know that was done a few years back.
Yeah. I wrote it like a while back, but I just kept revamping and hearing different things and stacking harmony different. Because you hear the original version, the harmony's kind of mellowed out. This one is it's a little more intricate.
Yeah.
It's more notes and I just took my time with it. It wasn't ready. I was just kind of like debuting it a few years ago when I performed like a little bit of it at the Key Club, I think it was in LA. And I just I redid it, I resung it over, kind of took a smoother approach to it and made it more meaningful, I think. So
Yeah, and Dalvin, talk
yeah.
about this movement that you've been on, because, like I said, we've done interviews for a long time, and there was this period
Right.
where you would drop a record and you would disappear, drop a record and
Right.
disappear. But over the last couple of months, I'll say you've been consistently dropping music. I mean, first of
Yeah,
all,
yeah.
I mean, talk about in the years past when you would drop a record and just not fully, complete it, versus now where it's just like you're ready. Like, just talk about that.
Well, now it's different because then I had a different team of people. Like, I got my sister who's a big inspiration. Although I want to knock her out sometimes. We argue, and she kind of pushed me to just step out and take this whole camp music thing
Yeah,
and just start producing music. Like before it was like I had to take my time and had to be under everybody's direction of when I could drop a song, when I couldn't, or
mhm,
whatever. But now it's just like I have the independent freedom to do whatever I want, however I want. You know what I'm saying? And we just put our heads together, come up with video concepts, song ideas, and we go through the library because I have a whole catalog of records. I could release a record every week probably and
right.
never run out of records. But so it's just like I'm having fun doing what I'm doing because it's 100% my creative freedom of making music how I want. I might release a heavy metal song next week and I could do it. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
my range of like musical knowledge and insight goes far beyond R&B.
Yeah.
And that was just a song that's kind of like it's not strictly R&B, but it has elements of you have a rock guitar coming at the end of the second verse. Um, so it's like I'm just having fun, like just taking what I brought to Jodeci and
Right.
expressing it on my own because a lot of people don't really know the elements that I put in Jodeci as far as like the structure of harmony and different things. So now I get a chance to really show creatively what my input was. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, because I know you're a big rock guy as well, you love rock music. When you're creating
yeah,
this music and I guess even putting it out, like, what's the strategy here? I know you wanna also still cater to the Jodeci fans, but I think at some
right.
point you wanna branch out, like, just talk about your approach right now.
Well, it's hard for me to get away from people say, and I reminds me of Jodeci. I mean,
Yeah.
it's because together collectively we have a chemistry that makes Jodeci, and this is just what I know. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
not like I'm trying to sound like Jodeci. This is just what I bring to Jodeci, and so you might hear like the harmonies in all my songs, even "She Bad" or "Good Times." When I
Yeah.
go to the bridge or the choruses, it's always got the four harmonies, and because we're big on harmony, and I think that hands down, not patting ourselves on the back. I think
Right.
that unmatched that Jodeci is known for harmony. You know what I'm saying? And known for the way we structure and the intricacies of the notes that we put together. So that's just what I do. And it's like, sometimes it turns out people are like, oh, that sounds like Jodeci. That's not on purpose. It's just who
Right.
I am and how I structure music.
Yeah, I mean, you
Even
were
when I work with other artists, it had the same elements. If I structure harmony with anybody else that I work with, you always gonna hear that maybe that Jodeci somewhere in there. So
Well, it
Yeah.
makes sense because you were part of the process, you were part of the group, so, it only makes sense, and it's super cool because I spoke to JoJo a while back, and
Hmm.
he's working on a solo career. I know you guys are super tight.
Hmm.
Just talk about the relationship that you guys have. I know, you know, obviously you're close with DeVante, you're close with Casey, but it seems like you and JoJo
Hmm.
have a real tight bond right now.
Well, me and JoJo, we've been working a lot together, even like doing shows sometimes on our own.
Yeah,
Um, we just because we're like he has the JT Entertainment, so he's
yeah,
doing like the same thing I'm doing. We have great songs that we just been sitting on for years, and a
right.
lot of material we're going back and revamping it. And like I told him one day, I said, man, let's just start putting music out because we have a lot of it. And
Yeah,
he's like, man, you're right. So he formed this company, and I formed mine, K.A.M.P Music, and he has JT Entertainment. And so he came to me and was like, you like the king of remixes. So I did the special remix, and
yep.
with Snoop Dogg, and me and Joe have been working a lot closely together. He encourages me, and I encourage him on different projects. So I'm sure you'll see a lot of things that we do together in the future, as well as Casey and DeVante. I know Casey is doing the solo thing, and DeVante got his thing. But as far as like collaborating within the group right now, it's been a lot of me and JoJo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that special remix, I love that remix, like, you really did your
Thank
thing
you.
with that one.
Appreciate it.
That's a
Thank
great
you. Thank
remix.
you.
Just
Thank
talk
you.
about what we can expect from you going forward in terms of musically. Like, what I love about this whole movement that you've been on and you've been, loud about it is that you're writing these
All right.
records, you're producing these records, and I think it's time that people
Mm-hmm.
start recognizing, hey, you contributed, you did a lot, and we're hearing it. And like I said, "And I" sounds like a Jodeci record, so that lets you know, like, you put in the work as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. As far as like us going forward, Camp Music, we got artists that's going to be under the umbrella of, Camp Music, from rappers to singers, females to males, and whatever comes, I'm just interested in talented people and people that's willing to put in the work and get in the grind and we vibe together and come up with something great. And that's all I'm looking forward to just keep going and keep releasing records and possibly an album coming soon from me with songs that's not really singles and a lot of remixes I got coming.
Yeah.
And who knows, so yeah,
What's
camp
really
music, camp music is here. You know what
yeah.
I'm saying? So,
Dalvin, I gotta say, what's really admirable about you right now is a lot of artists from your generation or even the next generation, they're afraid to put out music in this new climate. It is super different, the streaming
it
world.
is. Mhm.
I don't even know how you can compare it to back in the days when you were selling millions of CDs. Like, how are you managing right now? Like, there must be stuff that you're learning every day.
You said that I'm learning every day.
Yeah, like there must be a lot that you're
Yeah,
still
well,
learning
I
every
mean,
day.
I think, oh, absolutely. I learn every day I open my eyes, and it's a learning experience. Life is never the same from
Yeah,
one day to the next with me. But what I'm learning now is that I think that artists, from like the '90s that were big, and I think they're fearful of not, you know, being as successful as they were when they had the machine behind them. Because a lot of artists, like from my era, are mostly independent.
yep,
And I just think that you just got to just believe in what you do, and not just try to compete at what is. Not taking nothing away from what's out or what's trending right now, but a lot of artists and from my era and my time who made like songs that could tour for the rest of their life are
right.
scared to explore and keep doing what they do, and versus trying to compete with what's out and what's trending. Because a lot of artists, no disrespect, but can't tour 10 years from now on music that they put out today.
Yep,
Jodeci, we tour for the next 100 years.
yep.
When we're dead and gone, our music will still be, remade, replayed, and resung and retoured. So you know what I'm saying. So that's the thing that you got to understand. Like you got to make things that's going to stick around, and not just what's going to be, on TikTok for the week. So, and that's not, what I plan on doing with any of my records or any of my artists that I work with. So
Dalvin, take me through what goes on your head, because at some point you got to realize that you might not be doing the numbers that you did in the
right.
90s, and you have to be okay with
Mhm.
that. And it's just about adapting and figuring out what works for you during this time. Like, what was that conversation you had with yourself? Like, what was that time like?
It was like, I mean, and I'm sure all artists have this conversation. Even the biggest, Michael Jackson wasn't doing bad numbers or thriller numbers when he released, Remember the Time.
Yep,
So you got to just understand that, and even Prince, who was one of my favorites as well,
yep,
you got to just understand as an artist that your music is not measured by how people measure your music. It's measured by what you believe in. So at the end of the
mhm,
day, you keep doing what you believe in, no matter what. And I think that as long as you got a consistent fan base where you can go tour and make money and sell merchandise, you're fine.
yep,
You can't try to compete with selling tens of millions of records no more because back then people were buying records. People don't buy records no more. You get them for free. So you can't
yep,
expect to do, you can't be measured by streams. You can't be measured by who's hot this week and who's not. You got to be measured by what your standard of perfection or what you love as far as what you create. You can't
Yeah.
just let the world dictate who you are because you're not selling a billion streams.
Yep.
Everybody's not Drake today.
Right.
Everybody's not the Migos today. You got to be who you are. So as long as you're making something that's solid, I think that, and that's the conversation I have with myself. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
If you sell 10 albums, if you sell 100, it doesn't matter. You're doing what you want to do, and I'm loving what I do, so it doesn't matter. At the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a realistic approach to these things, and I think you're taking the right
Yeah.
approach, and the music sounds great too, so, I mean, I think you're on the right
Thank
path.
you, man. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
The
you.
other thing I gotta give you some props for is just, like, I would say out of all 4 of you guys in Jodeci, you really
Hmm.
championed the brand, you really championed the group, even, like, with the merch, I saw you with the Jodeci masks last year, like,
Yeah.
I thought you
Yeah.
were really innovative in just getting that out there, like, what does Jodeci mean to you at this point? Obviously a legendary group, but you're still pushing that
Right.
brand.
Oh well, it's. I tell the guys in my group all the time. We built a mansion and we just moved out and left all the furniture, and everybody's getting rich off of it except us. And that's what I tell them. I'm like, we just built this magnificent house, fully furnished, and we just like checked out. But it's like I love Jodeci. It's my brand. I would never try to get away from it. And
Yeah.
whatever, no matter what I do, solo, I'll never turn my back or leave my foundation because I'm just building houses on the foundation that Jodeci laid for me and that I helped lay. So it's not like I would never turn away from that because I mean Jodeci, I'm like probably biggest fan of Jodeci. So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, at the end of the day, I love everything, the good and bad experiences that we had and probably will continue to have.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
created something that the world could never change, and we changed the world with something we created. So I mean, I love it. You know.
Yeah, and the impact that you guys have today is still felt. I wanna take it back to
Mhm.
Jodeci's first album, that came out 30 years ago, like, when you think about that,
Wow, jeez,
like, the fact that I
that's
mentioned that,
crazy. Yeah,
does that feel like another lifetime ago just with how
it really does. It
Yeah,
does, man. I gotta be honest. It does. It really does.
yeah,
Yeah, just by you saying it, yeah, it does.
yeah. I mean, take me
Yeah.
back to a young Dalvin along with the group, you guys are on the car in the car making your way
Right.
to New York, like, what was even your mindset then? Because it's not like now where we've seen through your story, like, some artists make it, but
Hmm.
some artists don't make it. Like, you guys didn't have that information at the time. You guys are pretty much putting it all on
Yeah.
in one basket. You guys are going. Like, what was that time
Hmm.
like?
I think for any artist, I mean, you gotta when you believe in yourself, man, you gotta just kind of bet on yourself and believe the best, and it's gonna be the best outcome you can possibly imagine. And we had in our head what we hope would happen and what we actually prayed for and hope it actually happened. It doesn't happen for everybody like that, but it happened
Mhm.
for us, because it was kind of meant to be. And sometimes you have to understand what your destiny is, and you can't detour or let nobody detour you from it. And a lot of people think that when we first, they think we just was an overnight success,
Yeah,
but we wasn't. I mean, we struggled. I mean, bad. It was horrible. I mean, it's almost to the point to we wanted to give up, but
yeah,
we just didn't. So you got to come to the brink of almost disaster in your thoughts until you understand. I got to just hold on just a little longer, and it'll pan out.
yeah,
And that's what I try to tell artists today. Just when you think you got to give up, you just that step is just one more step sometimes. And some people not willing to take it.
yeah.
So
Yeah, take me to that moment for you guys where you guys almost gave up. Like, there must be a specific moment that was like, "This is kinda it."
I mean, you go from living in middle class suburban, and then you living with roaches and rats. It's like, I mean, that's like a culture shock, man. You just go from I'm living in my mom's house, I can go to the refrigerator, get whatever I want, going to not eating for like 2 or 3 days. It could be a little, detrimental to your mental thoughts sometimes. And you're like, man, I'm done. I give up. But we didn't. We stayed the course, man.
Yeah.
You
Who
know.
was the one in the group that, like, kind of kept it together during those tough times?
I gotta say it was me. I
Yeah.
have to say it was me. Yeah. Cause I remember, I know Casey and Joe don't get mad at me, but they bailed out, left me in New York in the Bronx by myself, and I was
Oh, man.
16 years old. But I stayed because they came back though, but they were like, man, I'm out. But so they left and they went back to North Carolina for a minute, and then they came back.
Oh, man.
And I want to say my brother bailed too, but I'm not 100% sure. But I think he did. I
Yeah.
just remember being there by myself a lot in New York City. So
So if it wasn't for Mr.
yeah,
Dalvin's perseverance, who knows what would have happened?
right. I'm not gonna take 100% credit, but that's the way I remember.
Right, fair enough.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's really cool just to hear back on that debut album and how you guys presented all of those songs to Uptown, and they were rejected
Mhm.
like numerous times. And like, I'm always curious because like in a generation today, the mindset is let me get famous now and then work on my craft. But back in the day, you guys had to work on your craft and then present it and
Oh
hope
yeah,
it worked
yeah.
out. Like, did you guys know at the time that your songs were dope and that they were good before you sent it
Well,
to
you
Uptown?
know, well, let me just say like this: the songs were never rejected. It was just the production at the time, and
Okay.
they felt like the production would be different because we came with a sound that we tried to copy the New Jack Swing thing, and
Mm,
that wasn't working. They didn't want that for us. They didn't want that for us, and so that we had to go back in and we had to create a whole different sound because our influences were from Guy, Gap Band, and Commission and Winans. We had a melting pot of everybody, and we
right.
just threw that all together. And I mean, even from Chicago and Journey and all these groups, and we just put everything in one thing, and nobody knew how to turn it up, and so we had to figure that out. Andre
Right.
Rail said, I don't know what you guys are, but you guys are something special. Figure it out. So
Right.
we had to keep going back in until we figured it out, and so we did. You know,
Right.
and it was frustrating because we thought, hey man, we keep doing the same songs over and over and over, but it worked out perfectly at the end of the
Right.
day.
And then after the success of that first album, or even before that, let's talk about before that. When you guys signed that contract, what are your expectations for the group and just your life at that time? Because again, you guys don't have the information that we do today on like
Mm-mm,
what it's like. What
nah,
was your expectation like?
man, we thought we was gonna be millionaires the next day. What I'm saying? We signed that piece of paper. We was like, oh, we're on our way. But man, it was total opposite. You know what I'm saying? And I think that we thought we was gonna be rich the next day. We was ready to pop the bottles and do everything, but nah, it wasn't nothing like that.
Yeah.
Totally opposite.
Right. But
So yeah.
that first album takes off and like 30 years later, people still listen to that album. What do you think
Yeah.
has drawn people to that album?
Um, I think that the content of the subject matter of the records,
Hmm.
they can they're universal. They can relate to anybody from ages 13 to 100. You know what I'm saying? Everybody, Fed my lady, first line, so you have my baby. I think most of the guys in America has gone through that, and people understand. Come and talk to me. It's a simple song, just but we're speaking like we're talking. And the song we wrote, the songs, the way we wrote them and structured them is like was actually having a conversation. It would be cool to say to a girl, "Come and talk to me. I really want to know you."
Right.
I've been watching you for a long time. The words are just they're simple, but people can relate. You know, so I think that's what keep people interested and intrigued by the things 30 years later. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
And talk about your time, or you during that era. You're the youngest of the group, and like you
Yeah.
had to figure out, hey, what's my role gonna be? Especially even on that first album, DeVante was gonna take charge of that production. You eventually caught on, but like just to talk about
hmm
figuring out your role even on that first album.
Well, I knew me coming into the group. I was the youngest, and they
Yeah.
treated me like the youngest, whatever. But I feel like I was the smartest. I feel like I was the smartest now.
Right.
I knew I had to be the point guard. You know what I'm saying? I'm a big basketball player, big basketball fan.
Yeah.
And we had a team. We had a forward, we had centers, and I had to be the point guard. I had to bring the ball down. And if you know anything about basketball, the point guard is the man that brings the ball down. Even though he can shoot, you don't always
Mhm.
have to. I pass and move the ball around to get it set up for a good shot. And that was my thing. I feel like I had to be, the point guard. I was Allen Iverson. That's
Right.
what I was. And I understood it. I can shoot whenever I want, but it's not my play. Pass it to KC, pass it to JoJo. DeVante, you take the ball. It is what it
Right.
is.
Yeah.
So that's what my role was, basically.
But then when we fast forward to Diary of a Madman, and this is like one of the greatest R&B albums, period, like just from top to
Thank
bottom,
you.
like
Appreciate it. Yeah.
you start
hmm
you start taking a role in the production, a bigger role, I would say, and like just talk about that time for yourself. Like, did you know you were ready to contribute in a major way during that time?
Oh, well, see, the mistake I think people have, the misconception I might say,
Yeah.
if you go back and look at the first album, like I said, let's all equate this to basketball and what I'm doing.
Right.
Okay, the first album I was producing. If you
Okay.
look at the small print, it says additional production by.
Right.
Okay, well, they take the rock, they shoot it, they get this, I get the assist, whatever.
Sure.
Second album, you see me produce half the second album. Like I
Yep.
said, just because I didn't shoot the ball, don't mean I couldn't. So second time, they needed me to shoot the rock a little more, so I shoot the ball. Third
Right.
album, I'm shooting all the time.
Yeah.
Now I'm the only one shooting. I got my own team, so you see how it evolves until where I'm at. So you just look at it like that. And that's the way I looked at it. I didn't need to shoot on the first album. Shot a little bit more on the second album. Third album, I'm shooting every time I'm touching the ball. So
Right.
now they pass me the ball all the time. So that's the way I look at it. So
Yeah.
that's just what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you look at every album, the credits got bigger. My name got longer and longer on every album.
That's what I'm saying.
So that's what it was.
I mean, but Dalvin, talk about that second album because I feel like you and DeVante really like developed the
Right.
Jodeci sound on that album. The
Hmm.
first one still had influences of like that time
Hmm.
period, but come Diary of a Mad Band, like I feel like that's just
Right. Right.
Jodeci.
Right.
You couldn't really compare anybody to that album. Like that was just your guys' time.
Well, I think what was cool about that is DeVante told me to go get my own studio, and he had his own studio,
Yeah.
so we could just actually just think different and not try to bounce off each other. We came down, he sat down with the concept of the album, and he gave me the concept, and he put me way downtown at Chum King Studios, and he was way uptown, 54th Street, at Hit Factory, and he said, "You just go," and we just bounce around studios. We started production, and because we didn't want to confuse what we were thinking, he wanted me to just hear what I heard, and he heard what he heard. So we were all, some days everybody would be at Chung King, and then we migrate back to 54th Street, which is Hit Factory, and it kind of worked out that way. And he's like, just whatever you hear and whatever don't work, we just scrap it. And I did a bunch of records. He did a bunch of records that didn't make it because
Right.
it didn't fit with the concept of the album. So, but it was. I think it was cool the way we did that because I introduced Missy on One Way Sheet. Nobody had never heard it, so I introduced her on that song,
Yep.
and she's a female rapper on that song. So, and that was the first rapper that we had put on the song. Then my brother, I used Missy, so he used Redman,
Right.
one of the songs. So it was kind of like that. So that's
Yeah.
how it worked.
Kind of take me through that time period with you and DeVante because I know DeVante in the studio, he's pretty much a control freak. Like he wants to take control of the
Oh
whole thing.
yeah,
And I know
yeah,
and you might be more of a team player, but like you want to stand your ground too. Like if it's something you believe in, you want it on the album. Like just talk about that because I know you and DeVante will disagree on a lot of things. You'll agree on a lot of things too. But just take me through that
yeah.
dynamic in the studio.
Yeah, he's a captain of the ship, so I can only argue with him so much. But he's the type of person you let him just say what he got to say. Then you got to learn how to finagle it back to make it make sense. Without all the because you never get nowhere. We used to argue a lot about production, about a lot of things. But you let him feel like you're right, and then you just kind of just double back on him and be like, "Hey man, just listen to this for a second." Then he'll listen. So it works out in the end, but in the beginning, it's kind of hard if you just, bumping heads and not agreeing. And I learned that the hard way because we wasn't getting anywhere. I mean, like sometimes days in the studio would just get stopped because we wouldn't get nowhere. He wouldn't
Oh
budge, I
man.
wouldn't budge. So it's like, man, there's no point. I'm like, well, okay. He's my big brother too, so I just I let him have it most of the time.
Yeah, because if I recall, I was watching another interview you did. I don't know if it was on the Diary of a Madman album, but I think he wanted
Hmm.
like an additional sound added to one of the beats, and you didn't even like that sound, but it's on the final product. I think it's on the album after that, but
Now yeah, that's on the shut out the party hotels, them damn bells and time and place. I mean, we almost didn't even finish the album because of that damn song. It's like, geez, man, come on, I hated them bells, and he just turned them up louder and louder. So I ended up telling him I like him, hoping he would take him out, trying to use some reverse psychology, but it didn't work. So to this day, them bells is in the song.
that's
Yeah, so
hilarious. And with the Diary of the Madman album, what do you think people love about that album today? Because that honestly, to me, is like one of my favorite albums.
I think, like you said earlier, I think it really showed the Jodeci sound.
Yeah.
Apart from it was just all of us in the studio, it was just us. And people usually think that your second album will not be as good as the first one. The first one is good, and we just, like I said, we didn't go in there with expectations of, man, we got a top for my lady, we got a top. And I think a lot of artists make the mistake trying to top what they did. We make music,
Yep.
and we just make music. And that's what we do, and we didn't go trying to outdo anything. We just made another record, and the soda after party hotel, we just made another record. And that's just what we do. Like, and I just think that us being, not having to go to different producers or having to find a sound or having to be trendy and just making music. I think people, they didn't really understand that, but they appreciated it.
Right.
And now I think looking back, people really appreciate that we were different, in our sound, and we did bring something different to the industry and continue to do so. You know.
Yeah. Dalvin, what's super cool is that, during that time period, you guys are big. Boys to Men is also big at that time, and they have
Hmm.
this massive pop run. And like when we look at R&B now and just your guys' influences, I would say, especially now, like Jodeci has had the bigger long-term influence. And I can't even put my finger on why, because like in my mind, it's Boys to Men had a huge pop run. They reached probably more people across the globe, but at the end of the day, Jodeci seems to have a bigger impact. And I love Boys to Men as well, but just talk about
Yeah.
that. Like, like how does that
Um.
work?
Um. I said like this, and I'm not comparing the two,
No.
but sometimes I think that we kind of stay. I don't want to use the word black, but I'm gonna say black because that's what I am.
Right.
We stayed black, and we didn't cross over. We let pop cross over to us, and
Right.
sometimes that will sustain, your fan base. Because I think to me, our audience is they're more consistent.
Right.
Pop. I think to me, sometimes pop they go from one thing to another. It becomes trendy. Even though Boyz II Men is one of the most talented,
Yeah.
amazing groups that I've ever encountered. I think their fan base is a little more fickle than our solid fan base. You know what I'm saying? They pop music sometimes explodes really big, and then that's it.
Right.
And then, but you stay consistent. It's almost like the rabbit and the turtle in the race. We just stay here, and
Right.
pop. You just zoom to the top, but we just can't constantly growing and climbing. And I think that's what like R&B, real R&B music, it just stays there, and you continue to keep that fan base. Sometimes pop, they go to the next thing, go to the next thing, the next thing, and so
Right.
that's sometimes because you have rappers that come out of one huge hit, they sell 100 million albums. And you have one rapper like you take a Nas or Jay Z that sell 5, 6 versus 100 million. That's the only 100 million, but they sell that 5, 6 consistently for the rest of their life. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So that's the difference versus just having one huge hit, one huge pop hit. So
Yeah.
that's the difference between pop, I think, and R&B. And that's what happened to Boys and Men because they're still huge all over the
Oh
world.
yeah.
And they have a residency in Vegas, so they have a solid fan base. What I'm saying, as far as like Jodeci, I think Jodeci became more iconic to our own fan base because we didn't cross over.
Right.
You know,
How did you guys know that that was the right move to take? Because like, did you guys follow any blueprints to get to that point? Because there must be some temptation to cross over to pop.
to be honest, it never was. It never was. I remember. I
Yeah.
remember the they say, well, if you guys want an MTV or the Grammys and all this, we're like, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
To this day, like the Grammys actually thought we were too urban to
Right.
even be nominated for a Grammy, which I still don't get to this day. But like I said, we've had a great, great career staying true to who we were.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. I mean, it's nice to get all those awards, and we actually, I think it was I want to say American Music Awards or either the Billboard Awards. They when in the '90s when R&B music was the dominant music, they
Yeah.
wanted to cram everybody in the year we wore the mask and everything.
Yeah.
We just
Yep.
kind
I
of
remember
we just
that.
kind of boycotting because they want to put every R&B thing into this one 7 minute segment. I think it was us, SWV, H Town, whatever groups was high at the moment in a 1 7 minute segment
Right.
for us all to sing. And we had all the number one hits on all over the charts. And I was like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
We're not gonna do that.
Hmm.
Not gonna treat R&B music like we just a small category, don't mean anything. No, we're not gonna do this. So we kind of just went and left on them. We didn't perform. We wore the mask, and people didn't understand it. They thought it was crazy at the time, but it worked because we understood. People understood after years later why we did that.
Yep. And R&B today is still disrespected. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's crazy.
yeah. So
Yeah. Delvin, let's fast forward to the show, the after party, the hotel, and I want to give you some insight from my perspective because, like, we always
mhm.
look at Aaliyah's album and Genuine's album, the ones that they did with Timbaland, as like the start of a new sound. But I would argue that the start of that new sound really started on the show, the after party, the hotel. I know Tim was involved in that one too, but just the production on
Mhm.
there was like next level. Like, just talk about what you and DeVante created there.
Um, well, Timbaland was a part of the basement.
Yeah.
DeVante's whole little operation he had going on, his whole movement, and he learned a lot from DeVante. DeVante, brought him in and gave him a spot in the studio to start creating for, most of the artists that were there. And Static Major, who was a, God rest his soul,
Yeah.
who was a big influence on writing with Aaliyah, and he wrote Pony for Genuine. Um, it was just like a team. It was like a team of producers and people that actually fed off each other. And we went to Rochester, New York, and had Dejalon Studios. Everybody had a room. All
Yeah.
the producers and writers, and we just came up with this whole sound. And I think that Timbaland went when he went his way, and and kept a bit of the sound that he learned and created his own little, his own little thing. So
Yeah. But, I mean, just talk about the show, the after party at the hotel, because that I feel like is the start of that sound. Like, did you and DeVante know at that time that that was where music was headed? Because I feel like that sound was just crazy at that time.
right. Well, I mean, actually, the concept was us being on tour, the show, the after party in the hotel, things that we do every day in our life on the
Right.
road. And we sit down, like I said, we always sit down with a concept first. We just don't go in and just start making records. We always have a long concept and we draw it out, map it out like a movie. Even from the interludes. If you listen to interludes, everything ties together from the beginning of the album to the end. Um, and when we started like just making beats in the studio, we started like with the trip drums and everything just started like, okay, and whatever worked. Sometimes by mistake, sometimes on purpose. And we just kept a lot of stuff and a lot of stuff. Like I said, we just trashed it, and what you hear is what we kept. You know what I'm saying? So
Right. Yeah, that's amazing, and it's crazy because, like, you guys actually, I gotta give credit to you because you discovered Missy, DeVante signed Timbaland, Genuine, that whole crew, and you guys actually had Pony in the basement, and that was years before it came out. Like, did you
mhm,
guys already know that was
absolutely.
hit at that time?
Well, I mean, Static actually wrote that as a Jodeci song. It was
Oh,
supposed to be
wow.
a Jodeci song. Yeah, so and Devontae said, no, that fits Genuine because it was our voice is a little too heavy and too soulful for it because it's kind of like a poppy kind of song,
Right.
and so that was Genuine's first thing. So and it worked with him very well, but it sat for a long time
Yeah.
before it came out. Yeah,
Yeah. That just proves the point, and even with some of your solo music, it doesn't matter how long it sits, if it's good music, it's gonna
right,
hit.
right, right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yep.
there's no expiration date on good music. It's not.
Exactly. Dalvin, I wanna fast forward to your debut album, Metamorphic, because 'cause I'm
Okay.
really close with Tim and Bob, and every time I
Oh
talk to
yeah.
them about you, the only thing they can say is like, "Man, I had such a good time working with Dalvin in the studio." Like, what are your
Right.
memories of working with Tim and Bob on that album?
It was fun, man. I went to Atlanta, stayed for like 3 months, and we just came together and they had made this one song for me before I actually started working with them. And I was like, these guys are cool. They were just up and coming. They did a couple things, and I'm like, they were really good guys. Amazing producers, amazing writers, and we had a great time working on the album. So, and I know Tim. I told Tim I want to do something else with him. I don't know if it's gonna be this project or another one, but I definitely want to work with them again.
Yeah, I think that would man, that would be good some good stuff on there. And then, of course, on that
Hmm.
album, you were signed to Madonna's label at the time. Like, just I feel like that album should have been bigger than it was. Like, I don't know
Well,
what it was, but, like, there are some
yeah.
gems on that album.
Right. Well, at the time I was under, management. Sometimes management get in the way of things that's supposed to happen,
Yeah.
and it's got nothing to do with you. Sometimes it's the people around you that sometimes can destroy what it is you're trying to build, and you just got to just understand that. And I think that album could have been something great, especially if I would have had a lot of my own influence.
Yeah.
And but you live and you learn, man. That's what this business is all about. You learn from your mistakes and you just correct them and try not to make the same ones over.
Right.
But yeah,
After that debut album, I feel like that's when Jodeci really kinda took that break. Because prior to that, you guys were still working. So, I think at that time, you guys aren't constantly on the road, and I think then you're able to start appreciating what you were able to do, like, during that
right.
period, like, I mean, at what point did you guys start realizing how much of an influence you guys had on R&B? Like, was it during that time or was it earlier?
I think it was much later. I mean, it was
Yeah,
much later. When you
okay.
kind of step back, when you're in the middle of something, sometimes it's hard to see what's really going on around you. But when
Yeah,
you step outside of it and you can look back and then see the influence that you have and impact that you've made, then you begin to appreciate it more yourself. But when you're in the middle of everything and this all the lights and the glitz and the glam, you don't really understand what it is. You're just in the moment. But sometimes when the moments come to a halt, then you can step outside and see, you know, what it is that you have done or created and really appreciate it.
yeah,
You know.
absolutely. And I gotta talk about Jodeci's last album. I know you've kinda tiptoed around that album. Um,
Right.
I'm gonna tell you this, and I'll be real with you, right? Like, I don't think that was a bad album. I actually really like a lot of the songs on there. Like, I think Jennifer,
Right.
which was, like, an older song that you guys brought
Right.
back, like, I love that song. Every Moment
Right.
fits that Jodeci catalog. I think that's a
Right.
song you guys should continue to perform because I think that's a great song. But,
Mhm.
I mean, that album, like, what I don't I don't. I don't want to
Go ahead,
ask.
ask the question. Ask it. Just ask it the way you think it.
Well, why don't you like that album?
Um, well, to be honest with you, I feel like people just saw opportunity to try to make some money using our brand once again,
Mm,
and it wasn't really what you would have got from Jodeci. You know, everybody saw the opportunity to collect some money using something that we had, bits and pieces of something that we put together. And
mm,
it wasn't nothing that I would ever sit down in the studio and take credit for, except writing, co-writing every moment with my brother and a couple other records. But other than that, you know, uh, that's just what it was. It wasn't a Jodeci album to me. It was just
oh,
somebody's thinking that they could make a Jodeci album just using things that we had, just gathering things that we had laid down, fragments of things that we had laid down and put together something without, the creativity of what we bring to the table. So they
yeah,
own thought process, what they think Jodeci is, but that
yeah.
wasn't what Jodeci is. So
Yeah, cause my impression of what Jodeci is in the studio is you and DeVante locking yourselves in the studio for months, putting something
right.
together.
And by you saying that, anything beyond that is not Jodeci, period. You know what I'm
Yep,
saying? So you said that, and there you go.
yep,
Anything beyond that, and me and DeVante wasn't locked in the studio, so that it wasn't no Jodeci project. It was just elements of Jodeci.
right. Well, and then I gotta
Yeah.
ask this, and I don't know if you're even allowed to share it, but like I looked at the credits, and like some of the stuff is
Right.
produced by DeVante, but it's co-produced by people I don't really even recognize. Who are they?
I don't recognize him either. And the names, I have no idea.
Oh,
I
okay.
was in a call with somebody one day, and they said, "Hey, man, I produced on your album." I'm like, "Who are you?" And that's no lie. That's a true story. True
Wow.
story. I had no idea. I had no idea. I was like, "You did what song?" He's like, "Oh, Jennifer." I said, "No, you did. We made this song almost 25, 30 years ago. There's no way you could have been on the song." But I mean, and his name was on there though.
Yep.
When I looked, his name was on there. He wasn't lying. So everybody was just, putting they little whatever. I don't know what you call it, man. It was a disaster to me, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, Dalvin, give us some perspective on it from your guys' point of view, because you guys are veterans in the game. Like, it would be hard for me to believe that something could happen to you guys like that. Like, you guys are a legendary group. Like, is that just how the industry is nowadays on a major label? Like, just talk about that.
I mean, the industry is always got it's always got pitfalls. No matter it's happened to the best. I mean, you look at the Temptations back in the I guess '60s. They had white people on the album covers.
Right. Yeah.
It's just so what I'm saying. So you can never. People always find an angle to try to manipulate what it is that they're trying to profit from. It's always going to be that. And no matter who you are, no matter how big you are, no matter, it's always when people see there's a way to make some money off of you and your brand, they'll find a way to do it. You might consent to a small portion, and they take that small portion, turn to something humongous
Mm,
that you had no idea it was. So, having said that, without saying in detail, that's just basically it happens to a lot of artists,
fair enough.
so
Yeah.
you know.
So Dalvin, then what happens after that album? Like the conversation with the group, because that's when you guys start doing your solo thing. Like, what's that conversation like afterwards?
I We all felt there was a time to focus on the business because at the end of the day, it is called the music business. It's not
Yep.
called the singing business. It's not called nothing else. It's not called the producing business. It's called the music business. So you figure out, hey man, let's just take a step back because, like I said earlier in the conversation, we built this gigantic mansion and everybody's living in it and for free
Right.
besides us. And we outside like knocking on the door, like, hey man, let me get my room back. But and that's just how I felt. That's how we all felt. So at the end of the day, we took a step back and let's just enjoy what we're doing until we figure this out. So you start weeding out the snakes and the leeches and everybody, and it takes time. It takes a process.
Right.
It take you a minute to get in the mess. It take you a minute to get out of it. So that's just how it works. And that's in life too.
Yeah.
So it doesn't happen overnight. Snap your thing and everything is straight. It takes a minute.
Right.
So
Makes sense. So Dalvin, we're almost out of time here, but of course,
all
new
right.
music on the way. But I gotta say, what I
Mm-hmm.
want to hear from you more is more of your production and songwriting for other people as well, because I feel like we still need
Okay.
that. I know you've done a lot in the past. You did some stuff with Tupac, with Mariah Carey. Like, there's a lot that you've done,
Mm-hmm.
but I still want to hear
Mm-hmm.
more from you on from that side as well.
Right. And you definitely will. Like I said, I'm bringing in artists now of my
Yeah.
own, and I'm branching out and working with other artists. So it's I mean, I'm back into my full swing of things and enjoy what I'm doing instead of feeling like I'm working for somebody else and just slaving for somebody to not reaping the benefits of my work. So now you always feel good about it when you feel like it's paying off for you in some kind of way. Not always financially, but in ways that you have freedom and you feel creative. That's sometimes enough to get you back on and back in your groove and back in your rhythm. So I
Wow,
appreciate that.
that's amazing. And Dalvin, I gotta ask you for a favor here because I see behind you, I see a plaque there. Is that a Josie plaque over there?
Oh, it is actually. It's what is it? It's the Darren band. Like, yeah,
Wow.
it
I
is.
mean, when you look
That's
at those,
a million and a half record. That's a million and a half record sale right there. I
yeah,
got plenty of. That's
Dalvin,
the first one we got for a million and a half.
when you look at those plaques now and you can reflect on it, like just overall, what are your thoughts?
I can't believe we had on fisherman outfits out there in the cold. No, it's cool. It's like you just you go down memory lane and be like, wow, we really did something great, and we continue to do great things. So yeah, that's cool.